Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Revenge of the Switch Part 3. Games I found on the Nintendo Switch Game Boy and N64 Classics Collection. In this third and final part of my Nintendo Switch retrospectives, I have entered some unknown territory. Beyond one or two original Game Boy games, I did not spend much time with that system. It was mostly my dad's thing for when he was on business trips. And the few N64 titles I did own, I have elsewhere detailed in the backlog of this show. So it was a bit of a surprise to me when I was able to eke out a few titles that I'd never played before between the two of them. Games that I stayed with for a long while or until completion, when they became available on the Classic Collection apps for both of these consoles. I did not say this would be a long episode. These are mostly eras of Nintendo that I was not personally attached to, or when I was playing other consoles. And I'd never been much of a handheld mobile game player. Not until, well, the Switch came along and kind of forced the issue. Or should I say, made it truly more of a convenience option, rather than Nintendo's side hustle to keep the Energizer battery company in business. With that, let's get into this last roundup of games I missed out of there in the first go-around. 2000 would see the first Paper Mario released on the N64. But by then I was already deep in the PlayStation 1 catalog and had decided to let the rest of the N64's library pass me by. It would seem to be to my discredit, I suppose, as I missed this title on its debut. But in my defense, I was starving for anything at all good on the N64, with Ocarina of Time long in my rear view, and the Castlevania release on that system being an abysmal production that I feared for the future of my beloved favorite Nintendo games that I quickly abandoned ship. Although I missed out on how they crammed Resident Evil 2 on the N64 as well, so I suppose it all comes out in the wash. In any case, this was certainly not Mario's first role-playing game. But it was certainly the first time Mario would have a supporting cast that was not one of the usual suspects, like Princess Peach, Luigi, or even Bowser. The plot of the game sees Mario trying to rescue Peach from one of Bowser's many, many kidnapping plots, after the Turtle King has kidnapped seven star sprites and stolen a heavenly rod to make himself invincible. And Mario must free those star sprites to nullify the magic rod. Instead, Mario teams up with misfits from among his various game-based enemies. A Goomba, a Koopa, a Bob-omb, a Paratroopa, a Boo, a Cheep Cheep, a Little Sparky, and a Lakitu, all of who use their particular special abilities to help Mario traverse the various broad and idiosyncratic obstacles that challenge his misadventures in a 3D Mushroom Kingdom, while Mario can be folded up into various paper shapes due to his two-dimensional paper nature. All with a heavy salting of humor and wacky sportsmanship. This is still a kid's game after all. Now, I did not spend a whole lot of time with Paper Mario. If you have played its sequel, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, then you have played the first Paper Mario. And to be honest, the sequel is better. The cast is almost identical. The game board layout is almost identical. The leveling system is pretty much the blueprint for how these games function. Even the humor and challenges sometimes repeat in the sequel. Just go play Thousand Year Door. But that does not mean Paper Mario is a bad game. It's a good one, in fact. Its scores speak the truth of that, with a persistent 93 out of 100 on Metacritic. And if you want to see where the Paper Mario series evolved from, then this is the game for you. But I just feel like we've done this before, and we have. Nintendo is great for iterating on their own products and keeping it colorful and fun for all ages to boot. But it has just enough rough edges and questionable design decisions to make me put it down for now. I hope to come back to Paper Mario someday, but considering I'm sitting on a backlog of no less than a dozen 60 plus to 100 plus hour role-playing games, then I did not need to add one to the pile I have technically already played before. even if it was through the gameplay and story structure of its sequel. I wish I had stuck with the N64 long enough to play this at its brand new and fresh on the market time. It might have ended up being one of my all-time favorites games, at least as far as first-party Nintendo property is concerned. Oh well, we live with our decisions. Moving on. Coming originally to the Game Boy Advance in 2002, Metroid Fusion continues on directly from where Super Metroid left off and would make some major changes to the formula of Metroid that would later affect Metroid Dread. And why it's the name of all, and why all the name that's good and worthwhile in this world, Nintendo had to hide this critical story beat away on a handheld, I will never understand. In brief, the plot of the story sees our girl, Samus Aran, returning to SR-388 with a research team, only to be attacked by a parasite known as X, which binds to her central nervous system and she almost dies. But the team is able to stabilize her with a nerve agent made of Metroid DNA, but now makes her hypersensitive to cold. While recovering, she is sent to find out what happened to the Biological Space Laboratory's space station, guided by her now on-ship computer named Atom, and finds the station is overrun with X-parasites that she can now absorb, and Metroids the lab is secretly cloning, which set off a self-destruct sequence. Her on-ship computer even tries to kill her, but she discovers the computer is named Atom for a reason, and spoilers here, it was an old compatriot killed in the line of duty whose consciousness was uploaded to AI after death. The two finally get on the same page and destroy the X-parasites, which are amassing to utilize the Metroids to create a race of super monsters that would conquer the universe as the lab station crashes to the planet below and Samus escapes yet again. By this point, having had more successful escapes than her inspiration, the character of Ellen Ripley from the Alien movie franchise, who technically died in the third movie. Also, spoiler for a 34-year-old movie. Metroid Fusion was created by Nintendo R&D 1, the same team as Super Metroid, who wanted to do something new and unprecedented, as they said, rather than just remake Metroid again. Well, gentlemen, you certainly did. I was absolutely hooked on this game, and burned through it in a week. Nintendo consistently has wanted to forget that this game is in their stable, and to me, the Metroid series has been some of their best work. It's not a cartoon platformer, and for as much as I love the Zelda games, Metroid is more concise, more focused, and certainly more intense. Fusion is no different. Metroid Fusion received quote-unquote universal acclaim upon its release, and it received so many 9s and 9.5s out of 10 from across game journalism industry and won multiple awards. It sold 1.6 million copies worldwide, but by far most of those were in North America. Japan does not seem to be as big a fan of this series as others. I never had a Game Boy Advance and knew none of this. I'm so glad I was able to finally play this game on the Game Boy Advance collection. It was worth every second that I spent with it. It makes me sad to see how much trouble the series has in getting more sequels and iterations from the home office, and how much love it lacks, despite fans begging for more and Nintendo using Samus almost like a token character. They're happy to use her to sell Smash Bros. Merchandise, but Christ help us all if developers want to make another game in the series. Nintendo acts like the idea itself is insulting and requires an act of God and Parliament to get the idea past Miyamoto. But I highly recommend this title to anyone who has never played it before. And if you have, go play it again. This is a great retro title, and thankfully much easier to find if you don't have a GBA sitting around gathering dust. 1993 would see the release of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening on the original Game Boy. And I would not have my chance to play this until it became available in the Switch Classics collection. One of the few games in the series that does not feature Hyrule, Zelda, or the Triforce. Instead, we see Link awaken on Koholint Island after sailing there during a massive storm and being trapped by the godlike windfish. Link must fight and puzzle solve his way to collecting the 8 magical musical instruments in order to become a one-man jug band. That kid, but he needs to gather more instruments than most high school marching bands to escape the island and suffer a known twist ending that I won't spoil here, although it got spoiled for me decades ago and I haven't even played the game. I'm kind of glad I didn't play it upon its original release. I don't think I was ready for the amount of back and forth exploration and puzzle solving to get anywhere in this game. And even though I'm much more of an RPG and adventure game player now, I still got stumped repeatedly with this title, and had to turn to guides to advance the plot. And after a while, I lost the plot entirely and called it quits on Link's Awakening. The story behind the game that it was is that that's an unsanctioned side project on Game Boy Development Kit by programmer Kazukai Morita that managed to get the attention of the top men at Nintendo HQ, and it was developed into a full game. Yes, that is a brief and somewhat derivative statement, but since I don't want to vomit forth a Wikipedia development history text block at you, dear listener, that's pretty much what the story is. It received great acclaim upon its release. After going through a lot of development to make it from parody to a full release the home office could get behind and not feel insulted about, and has been ported to newer systems more than once, even getting a full remake in 2019 for the Nintendo Switch. In the end, and for me personally, I just couldn't get into this one. It's not the change of setting or the change in how the game functions or anything like that. It is just that I don't think this particular Legend of Zelda game is very good. There's too much retreading of the same island areas, a bit much in the way of point and click moon logic. And if you disagree, then good for you, I suppose. I'm not asking for your opinions. And in the end, this is just not really enough meat on the proverbial bone to keep me interested or wanting to return to this world and game. Really, if I have to refer to a walkthrough more than 3 times within the first day of playing, then this isn't the game for me. Yes, I agree, dear listener. I think that is excessive too. But seriously, I got hard roadblocked more than once very quickly in trying to progress the story, and I'm not even sure why. It's not like the game demands Bobby Fischer levels of 4D chess prodigy play to figure out where the flute of flogging the big fish or whatever is. I don't know if there is a flute or not. I never got that far. I just had to drop it. Yes, I know lots of people think it is a great Legend of Zelda title, and is somehow innovative despite being anything but. However, I disagree. But at this point, the series had so many titles under its belt, we can afford to be nitpicky on which Zelda titles you like and which ones you don't, and still be an enjoyer of the series. It's too bad I couldn't get into this one, but hey, there will always be another Legend of Zelda game to play, and I'm sure that I will like them more. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, I bring to a close my retrospective on the games I discovered in the back alleys of the Nintendo Switch various classics compilations. It has been a wild ride of discovery with these titles. Some good, some not so much, and a lot of middle-of-the-road titles that would have been fine in a collection, if not standouts and all-stars. Overall, this deeper dive into games of yesteryear that never really made it to the forefront of my mind or play options has been a worthwhile experience. I was able to give things a chance that I never would have even considered when I was younger. Relived a few true classics, and in some cases got to see what all the hype was about, even if I was extremely late to the party. I'd say that it was a great way to close out this whole and very long chapter on series retrospectives I've been doing for some time now. When next you hear from me, I'll be back to be reviewing and contemplating single game entries again from my ever-growing backlog. I'll see you then, folks. And as always, thank you for listening. Deleted Saves would like to thank Brad, Keith Gasper, Masked Llama, Martin Kubel, and the many listeners and supporters for being patrons and fans of the show. If you would like to become a patron of the show, please go to patreon.com and check out Deleted Saves Podcast. All donations go directly towards maintaining the show itself. Thank you.